behavior, and positive interactions would put them at the lower end of the likelihood. Next slide. Getting along with your peers. 76% of your youth reported that they adequately got along with their peers. 24% of the youth reported that they do not adequately get along with their peers. Again, this goes back to what we just mentioned. The getting along with their peers would decrease the likelihood of acting out, and so in that same respect, not getting along with your peers would increase that. 100% of the youth who reported that they did not get along with their peers used the emotion anger to describe how they felt towards their peers. So this is not a case of ignoring or simply not having friends. It's a case of being picked on or harassed. Next slide. Number of enemies. 52% of the youth reported having a lot, again a lot was left up to their discretion, of enemies. 48% reported having few, if any, enemies. Youth who feel threatened are more likely to act out in a threatening way or to act defensively quicker. Next slide. The comfort level around adults. 52% of youth reported not being comfortable around adults. 48% reported feeling comfortable around adults. One hypothesis is that the ratio of youth who are not comfortable around adults would be higher if the statistic was not skewed by those youth who reported that their guardians participated in deviant behavior with them. So what this is saying is this statistic is maybe not the most accurate because we're trying to get whether the youth are comfortable around adults, and in this case their idea of adults are the ones that participate in the deviant behavior with them. So it is natural that they will feel more comfortable around those adults, but it's not an accurate representation of adult population as a whole. Next slide. Introvert or extrovert. 60% of youth referred to themselves as extroverts. 40% of youth referred to themselves as introverts. This ratio is pretty close. One hypothesis may be that introverts and extroverts act out equally as far as numbers go. However, they commit different types of deviant behavior. That's up to your discretion. There's not enough information to make any kind of conclusion like that, but it's interesting. Next slide. Appreciation of parents or guardians. 56% of the youth reported not getting along with their parents. 44% of the youth reported getting along with their parents. Again, the difference found here probably should be higher. This statistic is, again, probably skewed due to the fact that the youth who reported participation by their guardians in deviant behavior. Appreciation for siblings. 36% of youth were from single-child homes, so that doesn't qualify. 42% of youth reported not getting along with their siblings, and 22% of youth reported getting along with their siblings. Next slide. Participation with family. 56% of youth reported having some regular activities that they do on a regular basis with their family. 44% of youth reported that they did not have anything that they do on a regular basis with their family. Two of the best indicators for predicting deviant behavior are, number one, a bad opinion of your family, or not getting along with your family, and number two, little to no involvement with your family in regular communal activities. Next slide. Amount of daily time spent with family. 56% of youth reported spending 1 or less hours daily with family. 76% of youth spent 2 hours or less daily with family. 84% of youth spent 3 hours or less daily with family. 100% of youth spent 4 hours or less with family. Now, if you consider this, in the average family, you may spend a half an hour eating supper. So right there is half an hour. So 3.5 hours in the evening would be less than average, I would estimate. But according to this, 100% of the youth spend 4 or less hours daily with family. Next slide. Closer to friends or family. 88% of youth reported being closer to their friends. 12% of youth reported being closer to their family. Next slide. Easy to get along with. 68% of the youth reported that they believe they are easy to get along with. 32% of the youth reported that they believe they are not easy to get along with. Next slide. Others' opinions of you. 68% of the youth believed others would say that they are easy to get along with. 32% of the youth believed that others would say they are not easy to get along with. Now the implication here is, of course, the connection of this slide to the previous slide, in which the statistics are different. One self-perception of themselves versus what they're willing to be honest about, others' opinions of themselves. So you can have a look at that. Next slide. Break up or start a fight. 56% of youth reported they are more likely to start a fight. 44% reported that they are more likely to break up a fight. So the vast majority of youth are reporting that they are more likely to start a fight. Next slide. In a serious relationship, 60% of youth reported that they are not in a serious relationship. 40% of youth reported that they are in a serious relationship. Now, you can view this information one of two ways. One, the first way would be that you might be glad to hear that 60% of youth are not in a serious relationship. The second way, of course, would be to say, well, there's a commitment issue here. There's a lack of association, a disassociation that youth are forming between each other. It's a shallow connection, and that's why there's a lack of serious relationships. Now, of course, it would depend on the age of the youth. Again, most of the youth surveyed here are older, so it would not be unnatural for them to be in a serious relationship. So, in this case, it's probably more of an indication of the lack of association or commitment issues. Next slide. Length of a serious relationship. Again, this goes back to what I just was mentioning about the commitment issues. Of the 40%, that breaks down to 10 individuals, 50% of the youth have been in a relationship 6 months or less. 80% of the youth have been in a relationship of 9 months or less, and 100% of the youth have been in a relationship of 1.5 years or less. Number of serious relationships. 40% of the youth have had 5 or more serious relationships. So right here, if we remember, we just finished saying that 60% of the youth are not in a serious relationship. At the same time, 40% of those same youths have had 5 relationships throughout their lifetime. 5 what they would consider serious relationships. That again leads me to believe that there's not a lack of a willingness to be in a relationship. It's a lack of understanding of what a relationship entails and inability to commit. 32% have had 2 to 4 serious relationships. 20% of youth have had only 1 serious relationship. 8% of youth have had none. Next slide. Ability to talk with your family. 72% of youth reported that they could never talk to their family members about personal issues. 28% of youth said they probably would not talk to family members about personal issues. 0% said they would talk. 0% said they would talk to family members about personal issues. Next slide. 84% of youth said they were comfortable talking with friends about personal issues. Now compare that to the 0 that said that about family. Now 84% of youth say they are comfortable talking with friends. 4% of youth said they probably would talk to friends. 12% said they would not feel comfortable talking to friends. Next slide. Ability to talk to your relationship partner. 24% said they were not in a relationship. So 72% of youth said they would feel comfortable talking to their partner. 4% said they would not feel comfortable. Next slide. Time on the phone. Now this is where we really get into what the youth are spending their time doing. And now this is opposed to deviant behavior now. 84% of the youth spend 30 minutes or less on the phone daily. Now this was surprising to me, being so low, but maybe that's because of my age, but 16% of the youth spend 1 to 2 hours a day on the phone, and 20% of the youth spend 3 to 5 hours a day on the phone. The vast majority of youth spend little to no time on the phone daily. This is probably attributed to 2 things. 1, the high rate of texting, and 2, the large amounts of time that youth spend with their peers face-to-face. Next slide. Time texting. 16% of youth spend 30 minutes or less of time daily texting. 32% of youth spend 1 to 2 hours daily. 48% spend 3 to 5 hours daily texting. 4% spend 6 or more. So we're talking roughly about 52%, over half spend 3 to 6 or more hours a day texting. Next slide. Time on the computer. 68% of youth spend 30 minutes or less daily on the computer. 24% spend 1 to 2 hours, and 8% spend 3 to 5 hours. Again, this is a surprising statistic to me, maybe again because of my age, but if I had to attribute it to something, it would probably be, again, the increase in face-to-face peer time. Next slide. Time spent playing video games. 40% of youth spend 30 minutes or less playing video games. 28% spend 1 to 2 hours daily playing video games. 32% spend 3 to 5 hours playing video games. And 4% spend 6 or more hours playing video games. Next slide. Schoolwork outside of school. 100% of these youth reported that they do not do any schoolwork outside of school. Next slide. Holding a job. 56% of these youth